Ah, you've caught me with my new favorite lens. This is the Sony G Master 100 to 400 millimeter lens. And it's pretty much my go-to lens for a lot of the photography I've been doing lately. And I'm going to explain why. Right now I have the lens mounted on a Sony A9. I also use it on my A7R III. I own a 70 to 200 G Master 2.8 lens, and that's a beautiful lens also. And for me, that's the lens I thought I would be using more than anything else. I've come to really, really like this lens. This has a 4.5 to 5.6 aperture range through the zoom range. It has numerous customized buttons on the lens. So there's bottom, side, and top. And these are basically set up for what I call focus hold, which means I typically shoot on a continuous autofocus, which works extremely well with this. But if I lock onto something and I don't want the focus to be tracking or going anywhere else, I can just push one of these buttons that sits very conveniently right here and hold it. So I'd be scanning, hold, and that focus isn't going to change as I move around, recompose, and shoot. So this is a really lightweight lens. One of the things I like about it is the fact that it is lightweight, and it's very, very convenient for a lot of things. You can first off take the bottom foot off. This sometimes gets to be really cumbersome, and in a lot of lenses, the only way you can take it off is to remove the whole collar. Here you can just unscrew it, and there's a little spring-loaded switch in there that you use, and it's easy to put back on if you need it, and just screw it back on. But the lightweight of this is just a tremendous lens. There's an inner ring here called smooth to tight, and what that allows you to do, you can see, for example, I'm getting drift because I have it set on smooth, and if I tighten it up, it tightens the zoom up a little bit, which can be rather aggravating, but you won't get the drop down of the zoom like you have on so many other lenses. So normally I kind of futz with that till I get it to be where I want it, somewhere about 1/3 from smooth to tight. And this gives me a real easy and smooth zoom range. You can see that the lens extends as it goes to its fullest 400 reach. The lens cap has a locking button on it and slides in, and it also has a little filter holder window. Hello. And you can adjust your polarizer filter and so forth on it. So that's also very convenient because you don't have to reach into the long lens to take care of that. You line the red dots up and twist, and it goes on and locks, and then it puts those little filter door at the bottom. I'm using this more because, number one, if I shoot with the 24 to 105 lens, which is also the lens I really like, or the 24 to 70, this picks up where they leave off, and this gives me a 100 to 400. So technically I can go out with a 2-lens kit and reach anywhere from 24 millimeter up to 400. And just so you can see what it looks like with the 1.4 on, we'll do that real quick. The 1.4 just adds about 3/4 of an inch, and now I have a 140 to 560 millimeter reach. Incredible. And it still focuses pretty darn fast. The thing I use this the most for lately is what I call picture-in-picture. I tend now to like to photograph a scene and then explore the scene with this lens. So I'm sitting here at a picnic table, for example, and it has super close focus. So I'll take it to 400 millimeter, and right now I'm about 3 feet away from the bench and it's in focus. And this allows me, for example, when I'm shooting icebergs or flowers and things like that, that I can actually do close-up work with a long lens. And then by varying the f-stop, I can control the depth of field and actually become somewhat creative with the use of depth of field as long lenses extend. The shallow depth of field narrows, and it just works out really well. With this lens, we have a number of switches along the side, common to many of the lenses out there today. We have an autofocus, manual focus switch. We have a full focused to 3-meter infinity focus. A 3-meter infinity focus is great when you're shooting things that aren't close up. So if you're shooting wildlife and things like that, it won't kind of traverse the whole close range to infinity focus range. It'll narrow it down and thus speed up the autofocus. We have an optical steady shot on-off switch here. Now, when you're using the Sony A9 and some of the newer Sony cameras with in-body image stabilization, these lenses work in harmony that way. So you leave the optical steady shot on, and you shoot and away you go. And there's also a mode 1 and a mode 2. That's regarding whether you're tracking and how you're doing your autofocus. So you select what mode. I normally just leave it in mode 1 and it works really, really well. I took this to Svalbard and I was shooting Arctic fox. And I was on a Zodiac with the A9 doing 20 frames a second. And I watched this Arctic fox grab a bird, and I tracked it coming all the way down the hill. So I started at 400, and as it came down the hill, I was able to zoom in and even get to the point where they're maybe 50 feet away, 30 feet away, running at full speed, and was able to capture them. If I had a fixed length lens, I couldn't do that. This 100 to 400 allowed me to shoot far away, and when they got closer, maintain the same kind of frame, subject to frame ratio. But if I was shooting with a 400 millimeter lens, I would have gotten the fox at the top of the hill and they would have been great. But once they got to the shore, I would not have been able to catch 2 foxes in the same frame because the 400 would have just been focusing on their head. So using this zoom lens really let me capture that well. And on the same trip, we encountered some icebergs, and we were exploring the icebergs from the Zodiac, maybe a few feet away, and these icebergs were just beautiful. And this is the lens I was using, and I would just focus with the 400 millimeter lens to something 3 feet away and just found these beautiful patterns in the ice. In Iceland, shot a really famous waterfall, iconic picture, everybody walks away with it. Put the 100 to 400 on after that, and I was able to zoom into some really beautiful little compositions and little waterfalls that were part of the big waterfall. This is the lens of my choice. I carry this lens with me pretty much wherever I go. I pair it up with the 24 to 105, got great coverage. It all sits in a nice little camera bag, and it just works. Anyway, I'll be traveling with this setup quite a bit, and hopefully you'll see some more pictures along with the ones that I've included with this article. Oh God, talent always has just to wait around. I don't even have a trailer.